Hello, here is the news at this hour from Tstv. I am Olaide Amosu. Here are some major headlines. IBADAN constitutes 15-man COVID-19 task force meets neighboring communities. The United Nations urges Nigeria to prioritize school safety and learners' protection. On the foreign scene, ECOWAS gives Mali junta 1 week to appoint civilian head and prime minister. In world of sports, LMC invites NPFL clubs to submit 2020-2021 NPFL season licensing applications. Now the news in details. The management of the Polytechnic IBADAN TPI is said to have struck a fresh working relationship with the neighbouring communities in preparation for the resumption of students at a date to be announced later by the concerned authorities. Rector of the Polytechnic Ibadan, Professor Kazeem Adekunle Adebiyi, who addressed the gathering of representatives of communities landlord association at a meeting held at the North Campus Assembly Hall of the institution yesterday, sought and secured the support of the landlords on issues of security and COVID-19 pandemic. Professor Adebiyi also disclosed that a 15-man task force committee on COVID-19 had been constituted by the management as part of preparations for the reopening of the institution. Meanwhile, the committee, according to the director, has among its 8-point term of reference the prescription of minimum health and safety threshold required for resumption of academic activities, identify and monitor specific areas of the institution that may be prone to the pandemic, and come up with recommendations on how to handle such situation. The landlords promised to persuade all neighbouring communities to fumigate their houses, especially the houses where students staying off campus reside. The chairman of Oyo State Independent Electoral Commission, OISEC, Are Isiaka Olagunju, has disclosed that the commission would not engage in any acts that will affect the interests of the public because of personal gains at all stages of electoral processes. Olagunju made this known during the courtesy call of members of the board to Broadcasting Corporation of Oyo State, BCOS, IBADAN. The board chairman hinted that concerted efforts will be made to change the perception of the public on forms of conducting local government elections over the years to enhance massive participation during the poll. He, however, sought for the support of relevant stakeholders in the electoral processes with a view to achieving a hitch-free local government elections. The United Nations has emphasized the need for Nigeria to urgently safeguard education from attack to restore confidence in schools as places of protection for children and teachers. Its resident and humanitarian coordinator, Mr. Edward Cullen, said the Council has become pressing in the light of COVID-19, which now affects 46 million primary and secondary learners across Nigeria due to pandemic-related school closures. He noted that as state governments plan to reopen schools after prolonged closures, building a resilient education system to withstand future shocks should be included in pandemic response plans. The United Nations resident and humanitarian coordinator further affirmed that prioritizing safety in schools for educators and learners is an indication of the government's commitment to protecting investments in the education sector and a validation of Nigeria's endorsement of the Safe Schools Declaration. According to him, more than 3 million children in the conflict-affected states of Borno, Adamawa and Yobe in the northeast are in need of education in emergency support. The Federation Accounts Allocation Committee, FAAC, is said to have shared 3.879 trillion naira to the federal government, states, local government areas and other statutory recipients in the first half of the year. A breakdown of the disbursements show that 1.53 trillion naira went to the federal government, while the states got 1.29 trillion naira and the 774 local government areas received 771.34 billion naira. The information and data is reported to be contained in the latest edition of the quarterly review of the Nigeria Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, NEITI, released yesterday in Abuja. Its Director Communications and Advocacy, Dr. Urji Ubunaya Urji, in a statement said that for local government areas, The first half disbursements were 2.64% and 3.4% lower than the corresponding disbursements for the previous years. Moving on to the foreign scene, the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, has issued an ultimatum to coupists in Mali to support civilian head of transition government and prime minister for the country. The ultimatum was issued at the end of the 57th ECOWAS summit in Niamey, Republic of Niger. It was reported that the junta has not later than September 15th to appoint a civilian head of the transition government and also prime minister. However, the transition government will have 1 year to midwife a return to democracy, which was abruptly cut short by the military junta. The United States Justice Department is seeking to take over President Donald Trump's defense in a defamation lawsuit from a writer who accused him of rape. This means the federal government, rather than Trump himself, might have to pay damages if any are awarded. This was reported after New York state courts turned down Trump's request to delay E. Jean Carroll's suit, and Justice Department lawyers filed court papers yesterday aiming to shift the case into federal court and to substitute the United States for Trump as the defendant. The filing complicates, at least for the moment, Carroll's efforts to get a DNA sample from the president as potential evidence and to have him answer questions under oath. The Justice Department lawyers argue that Trump was acting within the scope of his office when he denied Carroll's allegations made last year that he raped her in a New York luxury department store in the mid-1990s. Carroll, meanwhile, said the developments illustrated that Trump will do everything possible, including using the full powers of the federal government, to try to stop the case. Moving on to the world of sports, Nigeria's Professional Football League, NPFL, participating clubs are said to have been invited to submit their respective licensing application, which is a compulsory requirement for all clubs intending to participate in the 2020-2021 NPFL season. However, this is further to the notification from the LMC to the clubs in a letter dated August 6, 2020. Following the removal of the restriction on football activities by the federal government through the COVID-19 task force, the league management company, LMC, yesterday wrote to the clubs providing guidelines for license application in line with the Confederation of African Football, CAF, and the Nigerian Football Federation, NFF, licensing regulations and conditions. However, the clubs are expected to, as from September 18th, begin submission of licensing applications with supporting documents, while sports checking of the clubs by the First Instant Body, FIB, under the jurisdictions of the LMC to verify submissions made holds from September 21st to 26th. Tokyo's governor has yesterday said that the postponed Olympics must be held next year by all means. This comes after International Olympic Committee Vice President John Coates told news agencies that the Games would go ahead in 2021 with or without the COVID-19. She noted that they are to go forward with the Games next summer by all means. She added that the city will implement every possible measure to ensure the safety of the event. Meanwhile, the Tokyo 2020 organizers have not commented directly on whether they agree with Coates' assessment, but said the remarks showed the International Olympic Committee has committed to holding the Games next year. With that, we've come to the end of the news. A recap of the headlines. IBADAN constitutes 15-man COVID-19 task force meets neighbouring communities. And United Nations urges Nigeria to prioritize school safety and learners' protection. On the foreign scene, ECOWAS gives Mali junta 1 week to appoint civilian head and prime minister. In the world of sports, LMC invites NPFL clubs to submit 2020-2021 NPFL season licensing applications. Please do not forget to always adhere to COVID-19 safety measures. The news was compiled by Mobola Badekale. I am Olaide Amosi. Good day and thank you for watching.